and we don't just kind of accept these more like decentralized.
I think it's important to have red lines. Like, for example, no Zionists, no imperialists, no pro-ICE people, stuff like that. But then, there's a bunch of other stuff that people should be more willing to compromise. People should be okay with compromising on. But that's what I've been saying, right? The problem is those are the first things to go always. And, from the international perspective, like what I've been saying here is that Americans compromise those things too much. I don't imagine, for example, like if you had a candidate who didn't advocate for Medicare for all, they would be happy to compromise on that quite as much, right? Because it affects them directly, obviously. And I understand where that comes from because most people are going to immediately prioritize themselves and the people they know. Okay, great. But that's what I said about like having, you need people who do uphold this line and do try to influence as many people as possible to make sure that they're upholding a red line somewhere for those of us in the rest of the world. And like what you were saying about Zionism, like you were literally the only American electoral candidate who got anywhere that I have seen in the last couple of years who has, is not violating the red line on Zionism. Literally the only one. And that is insane. That is pathetic because, with what's been happening, what Israel has done in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza, this is a golden opportunity to get people on board. If there's anything good that can come out of that, it's a change in the paradigm. But why is it that Maureen Galindo, 2.5 years later, with no support from practically anyone, is the first person to really like run on a platform that hates Zionism as much as we should be hating it? That's an indictment of everyone. I'm really glad that you sort of providing an example to people, even though you lost, like you provided an example to people.
I'll be the scapegoat.
I think will help people understand how bankrupt the Democratic Party is, how pointless it is to run on their slate, and that if we want to stop wasting our time, you have to try and build something yourself. It might take a long time, might be difficult, but if you got this far on $11,000, you came second in a primary against a cop who no one even knew who the fuck he was. Imagine what could have been done if we actually did have the apparatus to support you of committed people with the correct line that I've been talking about there, right? It's something
I wonder, honestly, because what would have happened? Like now that I see just how.
Sorry. Hold on a second. People are saying my mic is switching. I'm really sorry. I need to. I've been having problems.
It's still on mute.
Has it been fine for you?
You're still on mute.
Oh.
It's just muted. Okay.
Hello. Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I've been having terrible problems with my computer recently. I really hope it hasn't been fucked up for a long time. Oof.
You mean today? I think it was fine.
Yeah, I'll figure it out later. But what were we talking about? Sorry, I forgot because I was trying to fix it.
I was just imagining if I did get through as an anti-Zionist, how that would go. Like, I have no answer for it, but I'm like, what would happen if I had gotten through, how much they would have gone after me. Oh, I wanted to say that too, when you were saying about like the privileges of being American and not recognizing what's going on around the world, that this, and I've definitely, like, I'm aware of my privileges for sure, but to experience them firsthand is a whole different thing, right? And this Zionist attack that came at me, I was getting like hundreds and hundreds of disgusting messages and so many death threats against me and my family. Everybody in my life was getting contacted and getting threats and stuff. And so that just like put me into this like severe sense of like the safety, right? And safety, like I was being physically threatened. And I am just a regular single mom. Like I don't have the resources to protect against that in any way. What was kind of getting me through that whole time period was, first off, all the people messaging me and being like, keep going, like, don't give up. Like support you. And that was a lot of your followers too. So thank you for that. And my community here in San Antonio, they were so supportive. But also, what was getting me through was I was like, damn, like, this is what immigrant women are going through every day, right here in America, and how what Palestinian mothers are going through every single day, and in Lebanon right now. And it was just like, just that, it's not like I was totally ignorant to my privileges, but to have it be feeling it on such like a visceral level was definitely like a huge reality check that also was like, okay, we all, like I said, we all thought I was going to win. Everybody was so super supportive, and I was terrified of winning, but I was like 100% I'm gonna fight as hard as I possibly can, though. I have to, right? Especially knowing now, and I would have anyway, but especially knowing that what that sense of unsafety does to the body, which again, I knew, but it was just a whole different kind of level to see what these Zionists are capable of and doing to people. What I would say in America, because I do believe that the Zionists control ICE, that IDF and ICE are almost basically one and the same, and over with the IDF in Israel. So,
On that, I disagree with that last one, but quite honestly, I don't really care. I don't think
your microphone, I think it's still doing it.
Is it? Can you hear it?
Okay. Kind of.
Well, I'll say one thing and then I'll try to fix it in post because I'm going to upload this later. But, I'm having technical difficulties that I can't deal with immediately right now. But what I was going to say there is, I disagree with you on that last point. I think things are more the other way around. But also, I don't care if you think that. If Americans think their government is influenced by Israel, that'll just make them fight Israel harder. So at this point, I don't mind.
Sorry, it's kind of hard to hear.
Yeah. Well,
I know, right?
I know that you can hear everything that I'm saying, but yeah, we'll talk for a while anyway. I'll just have to go and fix this myself. We can end it here. Maybe come on another time if you like, or maybe other people invite you on.
Yeah, I'm down for whenever and whatever. I love this conversation.
I'm sorry I had to end like this. I think I have heat issues with my laptop or something.
That's okay. Yeah, and and I guess just thank you then. Thank you for this platform and for that video.
Anything else you'd like to say?
I'm sorry?
Anything else you'd like to say before we finish?
Is there anything else that I want to say? Does anybody have any questions? Should I? I can't see anything actually. So, but what's the most important pieces? I guess that's it. This is to me just the beginning. So I'm a systems therapist. Systems psychology is my jam, and in systems, when there's a disruption like this, then it just exposes everything, and that's great. That needs to happen, but then we need to sort of clean things up after that. That's how it works in family systems anyway, which I see relatable to more macro systems like this. And so I feel just really proud, and I sleep easy every night. I wake up well rested because I know that my heart is in the right place with all this. So even throughout this whole smear campaign, I've been feeling okay that this is exactly how it was meant to be in order to expose all of these corruptions all over at every level, so that we can see kind of how to move from here, how to root out what's not real and what's not moving us towards our goals. And so, I think I knew that was going to happen. I didn't know to this extent, but I think that, things are exposed now, and it's what do we do with it? And for me, it really is just the beginning of something different. Okay, thank you, everybody. Okay, this still all. And it started too when the like voice thing started, it started having these like glitch lines. That's okay. 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 All right. Thank you, George. I appreciate everything. Sounds good. All right. I will talk to you soon then. All right. Bye.
日の活力を呼び覚ますのです。どうぞ。迷った時はコーヒーを飲みに来てください。
アリアのひらめきを探しに。まあ、ええやんええやん。何かあったらちゃんと私に。真夜中の大冒険きっと楽しいよ。何かあったらちゃんと私に言いなさいよね。ちょい待ち。レコーダー持ってかな。生命が行き先を知ってる。安心しなさいね。昇級を分かつ。どいてどいて。なぎ倒してやる。おい叩きする。もう安心だよ。俺様の出番だ。ここは私が。天を立つ。照らせ。なぎ倒してやる。三尺の剣、属性を断つ。天を断つ。雲を照らせる。この剣たちがあなたを導くわ。ほっと。 よっよっこれやるこのまま攻めようほっふっしゃがっはっふっふっ解散決めた光邪魔だ剣を立つ雲を照らせ安心しなさいよね。だから行こうか。誠へ帰る。 邪悪謀反。あなたと私で響き合う。お疲れ様です、課長。終わりだ。無意味なあがきです。見切った。追撃します。バイク受けて立つ。よっ、刀はもう鞘。この気を逃さず。受けて立つ。よっ、攻撃速攻。ロッカーにあだなした報いを。対処します。終わりだ。見切った。この刀に誓おう。刀を抜けて立つ。勝負。さあ、やっ。追撃します。終わりだ。この気を逃さず。攻撃続行。刀はもう鞘だ。手は緩めません。そろそろ怒りますね。雪の静か。息つく暇も与えません。敵が回復、注意を。ここで切る。勝利を上となし。動乱はこれに次ぐ。終わりだ。容赦はしない。攻撃続行。刀はもう鞘。受けて立つ。課長。見切った。受けて立つ。課長、心身一門。終わりが無駄です。響き合う魂。 一刀無縁あ直ジャン弱点はそこです。芸術の力を浴びなさい。天網開会手は緩めません。仕事は終わっていません。この気を逃さず刀はもう鞘です。マイクは任せて。終わりだ。受けてた。無意味な当たって私のステージこの気を逃さず。お疲れ様です、課長。時間の無駄です。攻撃速攻刀は勝利を上となし狂乱はこれに次ぐ。終わりだ。ロッカーに肌なした報いよ。無切った追撃します。この歌を世界に捧げるわ。一刀無縁手は緩めません。受けてた。無意味なあなたです。この気を逃さず受けてた。終わりだ。この刀に誓おう。攻撃速攻。そろそろ怒りますね。見切った。刀はもう最高。受けてた。時間の無駄です。課長、あとは任せてください。この気を逃が直ジャン弱点はそこです。秩序改正。追撃します。心身一年。受けてた。刀はもう鞘です。終わりだ。時間の無駄です。響き合う魂の歌。混沌を断ち切る。手は緩めません。受けてた。攻撃速攻。勝利を上となし狂乱はこれに次ぐ。攻撃 やっ刀はもう鞘だ。やっさあえいどっかに肌なしだ。報いよ。この気を逃さず終わりだ。ちり命令を待つわ。アンビナンバー05。命令を待つわ。アンビナンバー05。エーテルサイト起動。バーチ特に甘く出た代償よ。自暴自棄に食らいつきます。チャンス隙がある。避けて援護射撃。配置についたわ。今よ。自暴自棄で体勢が崩れない。甘くこれが戦いの戦術。オーバーロード。弾丸は風で一つに。いい戦術。制圧する攻撃。自暴自棄ね。変流の風船を行います。戦術プレイチャンス。命令に従おう。修正。 ちに畳みかけましょう。甘く見た練習。いい戦術。自業自得に再生が進む。今食らいつきます。戦術中レディー。一触即発。任せるわ。作戦攻撃。最大出力。チャンス。高め。甘く見た代償ね。狙撃の心情は一撃必殺。弾道を計算中。甘く見た代償よ。自業自得ね。アンビーいい戦術。動いて。追撃は今です。それのダメージ。戦術プランリレー作戦。集中砲火よ。自業自得です。絶対に引かない。天地自在。決めた光。照らせ。天に立つ。ちなっちゃんやで。ここは私が。うちが来たで。うちが 天よ我に従い天をかけよ。雲を照らせ。天に立つ。生命剣気苦天を裂く。ゆっと妄想が始まるで。力を無駄にしてる。天に立つ。行き当たる。今だね。ここは私が。白き乾燥の知らせ。行き当たり。雲を照らせ。氷の心。気を。天に立つ。剣が邪悪を打ち、この岩天をしのぐ。行き当たり。雲を照らせ。僕と内緒話したいの？正夢になっちゃった。今日の占いは義境を示すべし。私の番。これがアイスブレイクね。安らかに眠って。私たちがいます。間に合ったみたい。ガラスで凍えなさい。壊しちゃってもいいわよね。さあみんなでバラバラにするのよ。いや私のゲームをやります。お返しよ。雑音消したい。あがいても無駄に行く。ではお披露ください。チャンスですよ。チルしましょう。 の物語とまた夢を生きたる。私一気にちょうどよっとそこまでよくれて眠ってお返し眼中に奈落で凍えな最後のページをめくりましょう。あがいては無駄なの。学生を消したよつれて眠ってそこまで奈落で凍えなさい。消した壊しちゃってもいいわよね。氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。今私の番。行くわね。今やっお返し奈落で凍えなさい。そこまでさあみんなでバラバラにするのよ。いや静かに言いました放送チャンスです。続きましいずれ終わりが来るの。あがいても無駄なの。やつらが眠るまさにデッドエンドね。いやこれがアイスブレイクよ。最後のページをめくりましょう。奈落で凍えなさい。氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。どこに行こうか。少しうるさいの。割れる。ガスに消したい。 の番ね。ポンって叩く。ピリオドを打ちましょう。安らかに眠って。私の番ね。ポンって叩く。行くわね。準備いいかしら。お返しよ。鳴らして凍えなさい。そこまでね。物語が続くんだ。氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。あがいても無駄なの。雑に消し去る。お返し。安らかに眠って。でも行くわね。チルしましょう。空の方向どけ。そこまでね。ガラスで凍えなさい。あがいても無駄だ。断線に雑線に我が名はヨマの語りです。最後のページをめくりましょう。これがあいつ。迷ってます？壊しちゃってもいいわよね。チルしましょう。さっきのはウォームアップだったのね。受け止められる。準備いいかしら。壊しちゃってもいいわね。さあみんなでバラバラにするのよ。割れる。ピリオドを打ちましょう。行くわね。きっと当てるわ。ドドンと氷。私とゲームをしよう。鳴らして凍えなさい。幾千の物語とまた夢を生きたる。やりです。じゃあ氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。準備いいかしら。いいとこに来れた。お返しよ。雑音を消し去る。 最後のページをめくりましょう。いいわよ。安らかに眠ってあがいても無駄なの。雑草を消した私の番。氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。そこまでポンって叩くだけ。お返しよ。鳴らしで凍えなさい。行くわね。準備にそこめですよ。ポンって叩くだけ。洗い無駄なの。残り100枚安らかに眠って。みんなでバラバラにするのよ。壊しちゃってもいいわよね。リリアの落ち葉ちゃん。さっきのウォームアップだったのね。一線の物語とまた夢より光る。私だけだそこまでね。雑草ね。チルしなさい。最後のページをめくりましょう。割れる。鳴らしで凍えなさい。これがアイスブレイクよ。安らかに眠って雑草を消したい。死神インパクター。やりね。いいわ。受け止められる。お返しよ。鳴らしで凍えなさい。氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。安らかに眠って 今準備はいいかしら。ボンスで叩く。あがいては無駄なの。奈落で凍えなさい。いや行くお返しよ。安らかに眠ってそこまでよ。脱走消したここは任せてちょうだい。あがいては無駄なの。準備はいいかしら。最後のページをめくりましょう。霧の中にやるね。いい時に来れたわ。ボンスで叩く。行く。これがアイスブレイク。今だよ。少しうるさいぞ。準備はいいかしら。だよね。とどめですよ。お返しよ。一線の物語とまた夢より光る。さあみんなでバラバラにするのよ。壊しちゃってもいいわよね。今のうちにチルしましょう。氷が割れる。奈落で凍えなさい。安らかに眠って。今がチャンス。私の番。安らかに眠って。ボンスで叩く。あがいては無駄なの。消した。やりです。氷のデッカで寝かしつけてあげる。ここは任せてちょうだい。お返し。奈落で凍えなさい。壊しちゃってもいいわよね。ボンスが当たる。忠実なる友よ。我に答えたまえ。私いつにどうだ。物語安らかに眠って。そこまでよ。雑草を消した。チルしましょう。準備ボタン任せて。 壊しちゃってもいいわよね。さあみんなでバラバラにするのよ。ゴー。ピリオドを打ちましょう。奈落で凍えなさい。いい時に来れたわ。お返しよ。安らかに眠って。準備はいいかしら。私とゲームをしよう。間に合ったのか。チルしましょう。最後のページをめくりましょう。これが割れる。これがアイスブレイクよ。雑草を消した。綺麗だよね。我が名はヨマの語りです。奈落で凍えなさい。あがいたら無駄だな。行くわね。安らかに眠って。氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。私の後ろにいて。壊しちゃってもいいわよね。みんなでバラバラにするのよ。お返しよ。奈落で凍えなさい。あがいたら無駄なの。雑草で消した。そこまでね。安らかに眠って。もう霧の中で眠りたまえ。壊しちゃってもいいわよね。奈落で凍えなさい。あがいても無駄なの。準備いいかしら。影を従え。チルしましょう。最後のページをめくりましょう。逃さない。ピリオドを打ちましょう。雑草を 消した安らかに眠って幾千の物語とまた夢を生きたる君の中で眠りたま壊しちゃってもいいわよね氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげるこれがアイスブレイクよあら綺麗だよねそこめですよいやその程度忠実なる友よ我に答えたまえ大事ガラスが凍えなさあみんなでバラバラにするのよそこまでね作戦私の番おやすみなさいいやポンチと叩くのね準備いいかしら行くわね諦めなさい今少しうるさい再び咲くのよ氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげるいちごちゃん任せてよっそれやいいわねお返しガラスで凍えなさいあがいても無駄なの作戦を消したそこまでのらいたまえここは任せてちょうだい準備はいいかしらポ 眠ってあがいても無駄な鳴らして凍えなさいそこまでよ物語雑誌に消したライト前サマセイのダウン死神インパクト私の番ね氷のデッカで寝かしつけてあげる行くお返しよ安らかに眠って準備はいいでしょあがいても無駄なの鳴らして凍えなさい我が名はヨマの語りですダンスになりやすい中へそこめですよそこまでよ雑誌に消したお返しよ安らかに眠って鳴らしで凍えなさい壊しちゃってもいいわよねさあみんなでバラバラにするのよ最後のページをめくりましょう。リリアに立ちましょう。鳴らしで凍えなさい。いや、うちがお返し。残響に安らかに眠ってさあ、みんなでバラバラにするのよ。雑誌を消した。そこにも行かせない。 壊しちゃってもいいわね。これがアイスブレイク。チルしましょう。氷のベッドで寝かしつけてあげる。空の方向行くわね。あがいても無駄なの。
class is the mainspring of the progress possible in those concrete conditions. In 1859, it was not imperialism that comprised the objective content of the historical process in continental Europe, but national bourgeois movements for liberation. The mainspring was the movement of the bourgeoisie against the feudal and absolutist forces. 55 years later, when the place of the old and reactionary feudal lords has been taken by the not unsimilar finance capital tycoons, the decrepit bourgeoisie, the knowledgeable Patrusov is out to appraise international conflicts from the standpoint of the bourgeoisie, not of the new class. Footnote from Lenin, indeed, Patrusov writes, it was during that period of seeming stagnation that tremendous molecular processes were taking place in every country. The international situation, too, was gradually changing, the policy of colonial acquisitions, of militant imperialism becoming its determining feature. Unquote. Back to the main text. Patrusov has not given proper thought to the significance of the truth he uttered in the above words. Let us suppose that two countries are at war in the epoch of bourgeois national liberation movements. Which country should we wish success to from the standpoint of present-day democracy? Obviously, to that country whose success will give a greater impetus to the bourgeoisie's liberation movement, make its development more speedy, and undermine feudalism the more decisively. Let us further suppose that the determining feature of the objective historical situation has changed, and that the place of capital striving for national liberation has been taken by international, reactionary, and imperialist finance capital. The former country, let us say, possesses 3/4 of Africa, whereas the latter possesses 1/4. A repartition of Africa is the objective content of their war. To which side should we wish success? It would be absurd to state the problem in its previous form, since we do not possess the old criteria of appraisal. There is neither a bourgeois liberation movement running into decades, nor a long process of the decay of feudalism. It is not the business of present-day democracy either to help the former country to assert its, quote, right to 3/4 of Africa, or to help the latter country, even if it is developing economically more rapidly than the former, to take over those 3/4. So comment here, this is also going to end up in the revolutionary defeatism playlist, which concerns what is the position of the revolutionary proletariat in inter-imperialist conflicts. So the scenario that Lenin just described, where two imperial powers are fighting over the right to divide Africa amongst themselves, and explains why it's not supportable by communists to take either of those sides. This is a lesson a lot of people are having a hard time learning today. For example, taking one side or the other in the emerging NATO versus Russia conflict. Continuing, present-day democracy will remain true to itself only if it joins neither one nor the other imperialist bourgeoisie. Only if it says that the two sides are equally bad, and if it wishes the defeat of the imperialist bourgeoisie in every country. Any other decision will, in reality, be national liberal and have nothing in common with genuine internationalism. The reader should not let themselves be deceived by the pretentious terminology Patrusov employs to conceal his switch over to the standpoint of the bourgeoisie. When Patrusov exclaims, quote, not toward individualism, but toward internationalist consciousness in all its integrity and all its vigor, unquote, his aim is to contrast his own point of view with that of Kautsky. He calls the latter's view, and that of others like him, quote, individualism, because of Kautsky's refusal to decide, quote, the success of which side is more desirable, and his justification of the workers' national liberalism in each, quote, individual country. We, on the contrary, he, as it were, says, we, Patrusov, Cherevinin, Muslov, Plekhanov, and others appeal to, quote, internationalist consciousness in all its integrity and all its vigor, unquote, for we stand for national liberalism of a definite shade, in no way from the standpoint of an individual state or an individual nation, but from a standpoint that is genuinely internationalist. This line of reasoning would be ridiculous if it were not so disgraceful. Both Patrusov and company and Kautsky, who have betrayed the standpoint of the class which they are trying hard to represent, are following in the wake of the bourgeoisie. Section 2. Patrusov has entitled his article, At the Juncture of Two Epochs. We are undoubtedly living at the juncture of two epochs, and the historical events that are unfolding before our eyes can be understood only if we analyze in the first place the objective conditions of the transition from one epoch to the other. Here, we have important historical epochs. In each of them there are, and will always be, individual and partial movements, now forward, now backward. There are and will always be various deviations from the average type and mean tempo of the movement. We cannot know how rapidly and how successfully the various historical movements in a given epoch will develop, but we can and do know which class stands at the hub of one epoch or another, determining its main content, the main direction of its development, the main characteristics of the historical situation in that epoch, etc. Only on that basis, i.e. by taking into account, in the first place, the fundamental distinctive features of the various epochs, and not single episodes in the history of individual countries, can we correctly evolve our tactics. Only a knowledge of the basic features of a given epoch can serve as the foundation for an understanding of the specific features of one country or another. It is to this region that both Patrusov's and Kautsky's main sophism, or their fundamental historical error, pertains. Kautsky's article was published in the same issue of Nasze Dzieło, an error which has led both of them to national liberal, not Marxist, conclusions. The trouble is that the instance chosen by Patrusov, which has presented a special interest to him, namely the instance of the Italian campaign of 1859, as well as a number of similar historical instances quoted by Kautsky, quote, in no way pertain to those historical epochs, unquote, at the juncture of which we are living. Let us call the epoch we are entering, or have entered, and which is in its initial stages, the present day, or third epoch. Let us call that which we have just emerged from the epoch of yesterday, or the second. In that case, we shall have to call the epoch from which Patrusov and Kautsky cite their instances, the day before yesterday, or first epoch. Both Patrusov's and Kautsky's revolting sophistry, the intolerable falseness of their arguments, consist in their substituting for the conditions of the present day, or third epoch, the conditions of the day before yesterday, or first epoch. I shall try to explain what I mean. The usual division into historical epochs, so often cited in Marxist literature and so many times repeated by Kautsky and adopted in Patrusov's article, is the following. First period, 1789 to 1871, the Paris Commune. The second period, 1871 to 1914, World War I. Third period, 1914 to an unknown point in the future. Here, of course, as everywhere in nature and society, the lines of division are conventional and variable, relative, not absolute. We take the most outstanding and striking historical events only approximately, as milestones in important historical movements. The first epoch from the Great French Revolution to the Franco-Prussian War is one of the rise of the bourgeoisie, of its triumph, of the bourgeoisie on the upgrade, an epoch of bourgeois democratic movements in general and of bourgeois national movements in particular, an epoch of the rapid breakdown of the obsolete feudal absolutist institutions. The second epoch is that of the full domination and decline of the bourgeoisie, one of transition from its progressive character towards reactionary and even ultra-reactionary finance capital. This is an epoch in which a new class, present-day democracy, is preparing and slowly mustering its forces. The third epoch, which has just set in, places the bourgeoisie in the same position as that in which the feudal lords found themselves during the first epoch. This is the epic of imperialism and imperialist upheavals, as well as of upheavals stemming from the nature of imperialism. It was none other than Kautsky who, in a series of articles and in his pamphlet The Way to Power, which appeared in 1909, outlined with full clarity the basic features of the third epoch that has set in, and who noted the fundamental differences between this epoch and the second, that of yesterday, and recognized the change in the immediate tasks, as well as in the conditions and forms of struggle of present-day democracy, a change stemming from the changed objective historical conditions. Kautsky is now burning that which he worshipped yesterday. His change of front is most incredible, most unbecoming, and most shameless. In the above-mentioned pamphlet, he spoke forthrightly of symptoms of an approaching war, and specifically of the kind of war that became a fact in 1914. It would suffice simply to place side by side for comparison a number of passages from that pamphlet and from his present writings to show convincingly how Kautsky has betrayed his own convictions and solemn declarations. In this respect, Kautsky is not an individual instance, or even a German instance. He is a typical representative of the entire upper crust of present-day democracy, which, at a moment of crisis, has deserted to the side of the bourgeoisie. All the historical instances quoted by Patrasov and Kautsky belong to the first epoch. The main objective content of the historical wartime phenomena, not only of 1855, 1859, 1864, 1866, or 1870, but also of 1877, the Russo-Turkish War, and 1896 to 1897, the wars between Turkey and Greece and the Armenian disturbances, were bourgeois national movements, or convulsions, in a bourgeois society ridding itself of every kind of feudalism. At that time, there could have been no possibility of really independent action by present-day democracy, action of the kind befitting the epoch of the overmaturity and decay of the bourgeoisie in a number of leading countries. The bourgeoisie was then the chief class, which was on the upgrade as a result of its participation in those wars. It alone could come out with overwhelming force against the feudal absolutist institutions. Represented by various strata of property producers of commodities, this bourgeoisie was progressive in various degrees in the different countries, sometimes, like part of the Italian bourgeoisie in 1859, being even revolutionary. The general feature of the epoch, however, was the progressiveness of the bourgeoisie, i.e., its unresolved and uncompleted struggle against feudalism. It was perfectly natural for the elements of present-day democracy, and for Marx as their representative, to have been guided at the time by the unquestionable principle of support for the progressive bourgeoisie, i.e., capable of waging a struggle against feudalism, and for them to be dealing with the problem as to the, quote, success of which side, i.e., of which bourgeoisie was more desirable. The popular movement in the principal countries affected by the war was generally democratic at that time, i.e. bourgeois democratic in its economic and class content. It is quite natural that no other question could have been posed at the time except the following: the success of which bourgeoisie, the success of which combination of forces, the failure of which reactionary forces, that is, which feudal absolutist forces which were hampering the rise of the bourgeoisie, promised contemporary democracy more elbow room. As even Patrasov has had to admit, Marx was guided in his appraisal of international conflicts springing from bourgeois national and liberation movements, by considerations as to whose success was more capable of contributing to the development of national and, in general, popular democratic movements. That means that during military conflicts stemming from the bourgeoisie's rise to power within the various nationalities, Marx was, as in 1848, most of all concerned with extending the scope of the bourgeois democratic movement and bringing it to a head through the participation of broader and more plebeian masses, the petty bourgeoisie in general, the peasantry in particular, and finally of the poor classes as a whole. This concern of Marx for the extension of the movement's social base and its development is the fundamental distinction between Marx's consistently democratic tactics and Lassalle's inconsistent tactics, which veered toward an alliance with the National Liberals. The international conflicts in the Third Epoch have, in form, remained the same kind of international conflicts as those of the First Epoch, but their social and class content has changed radically. The objective historical situation has grown quite different. The place of the struggle of a rising capital, striving toward national liberation from feudalism, has been taken by the struggle waged against the new forces by the most reactionary finance capital, the struggle of a force that has exhausted and outlived itself and is heading downward toward decay. The bourgeois national state framework, which in the first epoch was the mainstay of the development of the productive forces of a humanity that was liberating itself from feudalism, has now, in the third epoch, become a hindrance to the further development of the productive forces. From a rising and progressive class, the bourgeoisie has turned into a declining, decadent, and reactionary class. It is quite another class that is now on the upgrade on a broad historical scale. Patrusov and Kautsky have abandoned the standpoint of that class. They have turned back, repeating the false bourgeois assertion that today, too, the objective content of the historical process consists in the bourgeoisie's progressive movement against feudalism. In reality, there can now be no talk of present-day democracy following in the wake of the reactionary imperialist bourgeoisie, no matter of what shade the latter may be. In the first epoch, the objective and historical task was to ascertain how, in its struggle against the chief representatives of a dying feudalism, the progressive bourgeoisie should utilize international conflicts so as to bring the greatest possible advantage to the entire democratic bourgeoisie of the world. In the first epoch, over half a century ago, it was natural and inevitable that the bourgeoisie, enslaved by feudalism, should wish the defeat of its, quote, own feudal oppressor, all the more so that the principal and central feudal strongholds of all European importance were not so numerous at the time. This is how Marx appraised the conflicts. He ascertained in which country, in a given and concrete situation, the success of the bourgeois liberation movement was more important in undermining the all-European feudal stronghold. At present, in the third epoch, no feudal fortresses of all European significance remain. Of course, it is the task of present-day democracy to utilize conflicts, but, despite Patrusov and Kautsky, this international utilization must be directed not against individual national finance capital, finance capital being the merger of financial and industrial capital in the advanced monopoly capitalist or imperialist period, continuing, but against international finance capital. The utilization should not be effected by a class which was on the ascendant. 50 must be directed not against individual national finance capital, finance capital being the merger of financial and industrial capital in the advanced monopoly capitalist or imperialist period, continuing, but against international finance capital. The utilization should not be effected by a class which was on the ascendant 50 or 100 years ago. At that time, it was a question of international action, to use Patrusov's expression, by the most advanced bourgeois democracy. Today, it is another class that is confronted by a similar task created by history and advanced by the objective state of affairs. Section 3. The second epoch, or as Patrusov puts it, a span of 45 years, 1870 to 1914, is characterized very inconclusively by him. The same incompleteness is the shortcoming in Trotsky's characterization of the same period, given in his German work, although he does not agree with Patrusov's practical conclusions, this of course standing to the former's credit. Both writers hardly realize the reason for their standing so close to each other in a certain sense. Here's what Patrusov writes of this epoch, which we have called the second, that of yesterday, quote, "A detailed restriction of work and the struggle and an all-pervading gradualism. These signs of the times, which by some have been elevated to a principle, have become to others an ordinary fact in their lives, and as such have become part of their mentality, a shade of their ideology." Another quote, "Its," meaning this epoch's, "talent for a smooth and cautious advance had, as its reverse, firstly, a pronounced non-adaptability to any break in gradualness and to catastrophic phenomena of any kind, and secondly, an exceptional isolation within the sphere of national action, the national milieu." Another quote, "Neither revolution nor war." Another quote, "Democracy became the more effectively nationalist, the longer the period of its position warfare was protracted, and the longer there lingered on the stage that spell of European history, which knew of no international conflicts in the heart of Europe, and consequently experienced no unrest extending beyond the boundaries of national state territories, and felt no keen interest on a general European or world scale." Unquote. The chief shortcoming in this characterization, as in Trotsky's characterization of the same epoch, is a reluctance to discern and recognize the deep contradictions in modern democracy, which has developed on the foundation described above. The impression is produced that the democracy contemporary with the epoch under review remained a single whole, which generally speaking was pervaded with gradualism, turned nationalist, was by degrees weaned away from breaks in gradualness and from catastrophes, and grew petty and mildewed. In reality, this could not have happened, since, side by side with the aforesaid tendencies, other and reverse tendencies were undoubtedly operating. The day-by-day life of the working masses was undergoing an internationalization. The cities were attracting ever more inhabitants, and living conditions in the large cities of the whole world were being leveled out. Capital was becoming internationalized, and at the big factories, townsmen and country folk, both native and alien, were intermingling. The class contradictions were growing ever more acute. The employers' associations were exercising ever greater pressure on the workers' unions. Sharper and more bitter forms of struggle were arising, as for instance mass strikes. The cost of living was rising. The pressure of finance capital was becoming intolerable, etc., etc. In actual fact, events did not follow the pattern described by Patrusov. This we know definitely. In the period under discussion, none, literally not one, of the leading capitalist countries of Europe was spared by the struggle between the two mutually opposed currents within contemporary democracy. In each of the big countries, the struggle at times assumed most violent forms, including splits, this despite the general peaceful, sluggish, and somnolent character of the epoch. These contradictory currents have affected all the various fields of life and all problems of modern democracy without exception, such as the attitude toward the bourgeoisie, alliances with the liberals, the voting for war credits, the attitude toward such matters as colonial policies, reforms, the character of economic struggle, the neutrality of the trade unions, etc. All-pervading gradualism was in no way the predominant sentiment in all contemporary democracy, as the writings of Patrusov and Trotsky imply. No, this gradualism was taking shape as a definite political trend, which at the time often produced individual groups, and sometimes even individual parties, of modern democracy in Europe. That trend had its own leaders, its press organs, its policy, and its own particular, and specially organized, method of influencing the masses of the population. Moreover, this trend was more and more basing itself, and ultimately based itself solidly, on the interests of a definite social stratum within the democracy of the time. All-pervading gradualism naturally attracted into the ranks of that democracy a number of petty bourgeois fellow travelers. Furthermore, the specifically petty bourgeois conditions, and consequently a petty bourgeois political orientation, became the rule with a definite stratum of parliamentarians, journalists, and trade union officials. A kind of bureaucracy and aristocracy of the working class was arising in a manner more or less pronounced and clear-cut. Take, for instance, the possession of colonies and the expansion of colonial possessions. These were undoubted features of the period dealt with above, and with the majority of big states. What did that mean in the economic sense? It meant a sum of super profits and special privileges for the bourgeoisie. It meant, moreover, the possibility of enjoying crumbs from this big cake for a small minority of the petty bourgeois, as well as for the better-placed employees, officials of the labor movement, etc. The enjoyment of crumbs of advantage from the colonies, from privileges, by an insignificant minority of the working class in Britain, for instance, is an established fact, recognized and pointed out by Marx and Engels. Formerly confined to Britain alone, this phenomenon became common to all the great capitalist countries of Europe, as their colonial possessions expanded, and in general as the imperialist period of capitalism grew and developed. In a word, the all-pervading gradualism of the second epoch, the one of yesterday, has created not only a certain non-adaptability to any break in gradualness, as Patrusov thinks, not only certain possibilist tendencies, as Trotsky supposes, but an entire opportunist trend based on a definite social stratum within present-day democracy, and linked with the bourgeoisie of its own national shade by numerous ties of common economic, social, and political interests, a trend directly, openly, consciously, and systematically hostile to any idea of a break in gradualness. A number of Trotsky's tactical and organizational errors, to say nothing of Patrusov's, spring from his fear or his reluctance, or inability to recognize the fact of the maturity achieved by the opportunist trend, and also its intimate and unbreakable link with the national liberals, or social nationalists, of our times. In practice, this failure to recognize this maturity, or growth of the movement to an advanced stage, and this unbreakable link leads at least to absolute confusion and helplessness in the face of the predominant social nationalist or national liberal evil. The link between opportunism and social nationalism is, generally speaking, denied by Patrusov, by Martov, Axelrod, V. Kosovsky, who has talked himself into defending the German Democrats' national liberal vote for war credits, and by Trotsky. Their main, quote, argument is the opportunity of a break in gradualness. A number of Trotsky's tactical and organizational errors, to say nothing of Patrusov's, spring from his fear or his reluctance, or inability to recognize the fact of the maturity achieved by the opportunist trend, and also its intimate and unbreakable link with the national liberals, or social nationalists of our times. In practice, this failure to recognize this maturity, or growth of the movement to an advanced stage, and this unbreakable link leads at least to absolute confusion and helplessness in the face of the predominant social nationalist or national liberal evil. The link between opportunism and social nationalism is, generally speaking, denied by Patrusov. By Martin, the predicable link leads at least to absolute confusion and helplessness in the face of the predominant social nationalist or national liberal evil. The link between opportunism as this opportunist trend, and also its intimate and unbreakable link with the national liberals, or social nationalists of our times. In practice, his fear or his reluctance, or inability to recognize the fact of the maturity achieved by the opportunist trend, and also its intimate and unbreakable link with the national liberals, or social nationalists of our times. In practice, this failure to recognize this maturity, or growth of the movement to an advanced stage, and this unbreakable link leads at least to absolute confusion and helplessness in the face of the predominant social nationalist or national liberal evil. The link between opportunism and social nationalists of our times. In practice, this failure to recognize this maturity, or growth of the movement to an advanced stage, and this unbreakable link leads at least to absolute confusion and helplessness in the face of the predominant social nationalist or national liberal evil. The link between opportunism and social nationalist or national liberal evil. The link between opportunism and social nationalism or national liberal evil. The link between opportunism and social nationalism is, generally speaking, denied by Patrusov. By Martov, social nationalism is, generally speaking, denied by Patrusov. By opportunism and social nationalism is, generally speaking, denied by Patrusov. By Martov, Axelrod, B. Kosovsky, who has talked himself into defending the German Democrats' national liberal vote for war credits, and by Trotsky himself into defending the German Democrat. Axelrod, B. Kosovsky, who has talked himself into defending the German Democrats' national liberal vote for war credits, and by Trotsky. Their main, quote, argument is that no full coincidence exists between yesterday's division of democracy along the line of opportunism and today's division along the line of social nationalism. This argument is, firstly, incorrect and by Trotsky. Their main, quote, argument is that no full coincidence exists between yesterday's division of democracy along the line of opportunism and today's divisions between yesterday's division of democracy. Argument is that no full coincidence exists between yesterday's division of democracy along the line of opportunism and today's division between yesterday's division of democracy along the line of opportunism and today's division along the line of social nationalism.